Welcome to Commander Central, episode 22, our Rivals of Ixalan preview show. This is our second episode of 2018, and the year is off to a pretty good start, I think. Last week's episode was the most listened to show we've done so far, so thanks to all of you for that. Individually, things are going pretty well as well. Chris won a modern tournament last week, going undefeated. So congratulations to you, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Max is going to be making an appearance on another podcast coming up. We'll maybe have some more details on that later on. As for me, the rash I've had is clearing up nicely. So everybody's a winner here at Commander Central. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
How's everyone doing?
Wonderful.
Great. I'm rash-free.
I'm almost rash-free, which is good enough.
Helps when you live next door to a doctor.
It does, right. I'll have to ask Dr. Long next time. So does this look like something I should be worried about? It feels like spring out, even though it's
hard to be in a bad mood when it's like 40 degrees
I know.
outside.
Although it's supposed to get back down into like the sub-zeros again this weekend, I think.
I heard it's supposed to like rain all night or snow all night. One of the two is supposed to happen.
8 inches of snow.
My wife, who's a teacher, is all like, no school tomorrow. She's all hyped for the day off.
So do teachers actually get the day off too, or do they still have to
No,
go
they
in?
get, if school's canceled for kids, they're at least at her school.
Okay.
They're off. So, and she's got some grading to do anyway. So she's like, I can get my grading done. I'll be done by noon the rest of the day off. So she's all hyped for that. How about games this week? Anyone play any good games?
We played a lot over the weekend.
Max and I played on Friday and Saturday, and then we played last night at DDS at the store. So I got plenty of games.
Yes.
There's one I want to mention that was kind of funny. In part because it was a cool interaction, in part because the player's reaction was pretty great. And I had a flipped Docent of Perfection out. Is Docent the flip side or the front side? I forget.
Docent is the front side.
The front side. The flip side is, I forget what it is.
I'm looking right now.
But it gives all wizards when flipped +2/+1 in flying. And I had it flipped, and the player copied it with a Progenitor Mimic.
Ooh.
But he was playing Raikou for his commander, so he was able to copy the Progenitor Mimic when it came into play with Raikou. So he had 2 copies of the flipped Docent.
Final iteration.
Final iteration, okay. So he had 2 final iterations in play. And then realized Raikou is a wizard.
Oh, no.
So then that gives Raikou, at that point, +4/+2, and then it spins around the table and comes back, and those Progenitor Mimics each make a copy again of the final iteration, all 4 of which at that point are buffing Raikou, who goes up to a 8/4 or something. And but his reaction was just like, oh my god. He's like,
Kid on Christmas morning.
Seriously, it was like absolutely kid on Christmas morning. It was pretty great to see. So that was worth it, just to see him be excited to see Raikou turn into just a monster.
That is awesome. I love how it's just randomly some things just work out and you don't even
Yes,
realize
right,
it.
absolutely, yeah. Played a few games with Max last night.
Yeah.
With a new Brago deck. You missed
8 straight Conjurer's Closet triggers.
with it wasn't a Mer Battlesphere.
Whirler Rogue.
Oh, that's such a good card. I'm glad you added it.
But he kept missing the closet trigger, so he could have been copying the tokens and missed it.
8 turns in a row. I would have won the game.
However, I will top that, Max, so you don't feel bad about missing triggers.
Okay.
So this happened in an actual game last night, where I had a fistful of cards, so I was a little bit distracted because I had a scroll rack out and like 25 cards in hand, and I was trying to figure out what degenerate stuff I was going to do. But I literally, like, second main phase, played a Consecrated Sphinx, and then equipped Lightning Greaves to it so nobody could hit it, and then passed the turn, and the person to my left drew his card, and I immediately missed a trigger. Like, within 4 seconds of playing that guy, Consecrated Sphinx, and no responses, Lightning Greaves, no responses, okay, pass turn. He draws a card, and I was like, immediately like, do. And I then missed the next 3 triggers in the Consecrated Sphinx.
Oh, no.
And I wound up winning the game like 2 turns later. It wasn't a big deal. I had so many cards anyway at that point, and with the scroll rack out and that fistful of cards, I was able to do whatever I wanted to do for the win. But I like, literally, it wasn't like I was skipping the trigger intentionally. I was that distracted, I immediately forgot about it.
Just sounds like you shouldn't play that card anymore. It's
Right,
a bad
I
card.
guess.
It's a bad card.
that deck can just go away.
Well, and it may be going, at least the commander may be going away.
Right.
And we'll touch on that probably a little bit later when we do our actual review. Anything else we want to talk about before we move on?
Deathrite Shaman and Jeskai Ascendancy is broken, and I hate it and never want to see it again.
Oh, I totally agree. I was in that game.
So that was an Ramos Dragon Engine game, I believe.
Yes.
So
Yeah, just Deathrite eating something out of the graveyard. Oh, and then I'll cast this and I'll untap him and he gets bigger. And then I'll eat something else and then cast this and untap him and get bigger.
Jeskai Ascendancy just in that Ramos deck in general is really, really strong.
Yep. I'm just really happy he kept forgetting the loot trigger as well.
Oh, sure.
He'd just be like, oh, yeah, we'll give him +1/+1 and untap him. And it's like, no loot. Oh, yeah, he forgot the loot because he's doing something else now.
Did forget that, didn't he?
Yep.
Wow.
So it could have been much nastier.
Oh, way nastier.
All right, well, let's move on and see if anything happened on social media this week. Chris, what do you got for us?
We got a lot of feedback from a lot of different people on budget cards. A lot of them that I saw anyways when I was flipping through it were post-RTR, whereas we did pre-RTR.
Sure.
So I'll give a couple names out. Heard from Daniel Kraus and Heart of Tanks, both on Twitter, and Anthony Delfino and Nick Sikowski on YouTube.
Okay.
Each of them posted some stuff up that they like.
Yeah, I saw Spin into Myth was on there, which is a really good card. I've kind of forgot about it. Like before Tuck was removed, that was a ridiculously strong card. And it's still fine. It just doesn't get, it's not busted, so people don't play it like they used to. Condemn really got hit by that change too.
I still play it. Like,
yeah,
especially if I'm playing deck that needs more white removal in it, I'll play Condemn as well.
1 mana makes it makes it much more forgiving. It's just strange how like something like Chaos Warp didn't get touched at all by that, but
Chaos Warp hits a lot more things.
It's also in red where you don't have a lot of options, so like you're still gonna run it when it's your only way to deal with enchantments.
Yeah, or you get lucky. I've had a few times playing against a couple people where it's like Chaos Warp, they shuffle. They're like, here, you want to cut? I'm like, sure, I'll cut, and I cut them right into the card.
They
flip
for sure.
it. I'm just like, really?
It's still worth running though in red because
Yes.
you're one of your few ways to deal with stuff. But yeah. So yeah, well, thank you very much for the suggestions. We appreciate it. We also have a few things from Max here.
Yep. So we received 3 new Patreon supporters. One of them being Braden Greenlees. Yeah, Greenlees. The other being Patrick Sapola. He is one of the hosts of Commander Time. You can search them up on YouTube or on iTunes. And the third being Jumbo Commander. He is a big EDH personality on YouTube. Search him up at Jumbo Commander. All his videos are really good, and I've gotten hooked on him since he started pledging.
I actually like the night before that pledge from him came in, I was watching his video on Exile, and it was talking about the weird interactions with Oblivion Ring and Exiling a Commander, where you can bring him back from the command zone into play. It's a really good video on that, and it explains it breaks it down in a really easy to understand way.
Now,
so,
if I'm not mistaken, I have talked to judges about this. O-Ring permanently exiles it, but Banishing Light, you can bring it back because of the wording on it.
And he goes through and shows what the two differences in the two pieces of text, so you can know on other cards as well which ones work that way and which ones don't. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So check out his videos, and we appreciate the support. Thanks a lot.
Yep. And of course, you can find us on Patreon by searching CMDR Central.
Yep, you can also find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. Facebook, search us up, CMDR Central. Online at cmdrcentral.com and YouTube at CMDR Central.
I don't think we had any exciting news at all this week to go into.
No, not at all, because spoilers ended, so that's what we're talking about today.
Right, that soaked up the whole week pretty much. So before we get into some spoilers here, I have some trivia for you guys. I'm going to ask, see if anybody knows the answers to these questions.
I guarantee I'm not going to know it.
And it's based on, it's all tribes from Rivals of Ixalan.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
well, maybe with Merfolk. I might have a chance with Merfolk. The rest of it,
right.
I'm not going to know.
So we had two legendary dinosaurs spoiled in black and blue. The black one was Tetsumak, Primal Death. The blue one was Nezahal, Primal Tide. So prior to those two, how many black and or blue dinosaurs existed in Magic? Anybody?
3.
Chris, what do you think?
I'm thinking maybe 1.
There's one dinosaur,
Oh,
a black
yes!
one.
Oh, I was thinking it was blue, so I'm off on that one anyways.
Putrid Raptor from Scourge. It is a zombie dinosaur beast.
Interesting.
And it is an 8-dex on EDHRX, shockingly enough.
What does it do?
I looked it up, and it wasn't terrible, actually. I was like,
Okay.
oh, that's kind of playable.
Okay.
But I forgot what it does. We'll have Max look it up here quick.
Putrid Raptor is 4 generic and 2 black. It has Morph, discard a zombie card from your hand, and it is a 4/4.
So you can unmorph it by pitching a zombie which you can maybe reanimate or get out of your graveyard or something. So
Well, yeah, if you're playing zombies. And
Yeah.
You said it was a zombie dinosaur beast?
zombie dinosaur beast.
Oh, any more words on there and they ain't
Yeah.
going to fit enough.
All right. How about this one? Merfolk. So Chris is ready for this one.
Okay.
How many legendary merfolk are there? So merfolk that you can use for your commander. Chris is counting them in his head here.
Prior to Rivals or with
Including rivals.
Oh, no, now I'm going to get this wrong because it's including rivals. I'm going to guess there's 9 of them.
I was going to say 9 as well.
There are 14 legendary
Really?
merfolk. Now, which color and or color combination has the most?
It's going to be blue. Would have the most if I had to guess.
Blue, green.
Well, I suppose, yeah, what am I thinking?
Blue, I was actually surprised. I thought blue would have the most. Mono blue would have the most. Mono blue and blue green each have 5.
Oh, really?
Mono blue has Ambassador Aquatis, Empress Galena, Kapala, Warden of Waves, Talrand,
Yep.
and Thad Adal. And blue green has the new Kumina, Tyrant of Orazca, Prime Speaker Zagana, Thrasios from the partners decks, and Tishana, Voice of Thunder, and Varel of the Hulklade.
Some of those I keep forgetting are merfolk.
Yeah, Varel I was one I forgot, and actually the Thrasios I forgot too because everyone just plays it as a mana
Yep.
battery.
Yep.
There's also 2 in white blue, 1 in red blue, and 1 in blue black. So
Yep.
14 merfolk commanders you can use.
It's quite a few.
So with Rivals, how many pirates are we up to?
No, we're talking legendary pirates.
How many total pirates are we up to?
Oh, total pirates?
Because we got quite a few more. So at this point, pirate tribal is pretty definitely viable.
56.
56. What do you think?
I was going to
Chris?
guess like 72.
86.
Wow, we
So
suck at this.
That's enough, though. I think that's enough to do a
Well,
pirate
that's-
deck for sure.
When he said like overall, I'm like, okay, there had to have been at least 30 in the last set and 30 in
Yep.
this set.
And there was
And
quite
then
a few.
All
in,
the ones that they eroded.
Yeah, back
so.
in Masks, there was quite
Yep.
a few.
Yep.
The most commonly played pirate is Fathom Fleet Captain. And it's in 93% of pirate decks in EDH Rec. It's mono black, too. I was kind of surprised at that. I thought it would be a red one, so it could go in more decks, maybe. I don't know. Because if it's black, it won't go in Land Stormer, it won't go in Carry Zev decks. But
No.
I've probably done a lot of pirate tribals making those. I'll just use Beckett Brass anyway. So
I think you almost have to use Beckett
Yeah.
Brass. I mean, yeah, the ability is not the greatest, but just having the color combination makes it so much more viable.
All right, so we did Merfolk and Pirates and Dinos. Here's the vampire trivia question. Sengir Vampire was the first vampire in Magic. What was the second vampire in Magic? And there's technically 2 different answers here that would be both kind of correct.
If I had to guess, it is. Oh, I can't think of his name. He's the bad guy from the Weatherlight who turned into a vampire. What's his name?
Krovax. Okay, Max, what are you guessing?
Baron?
So technically, Baron Sengir kind of is, but he wasn't a vampire at the time when he was printed. He was just a legend. He didn't become a vampire until 2007.
Oh, really?
So they retroactively made him and Arini Sengir from the same set, both from Homelands, into vampires because legends were just legends prior to that. So the first one that actually said vampire on it was Krovakan Vampire from Ice Age.
Really?
But Baron Sengir, who you can use to regenerate a vampire at the time, couldn't regenerate himself. And there were no other vampires in Homelands because the only ones were Sengir family ones that were legends. So the only vampires he could regenerate were Sengir Vampire, which wasn't even in the set.
Oh,
that's.
I'm sure that made some people that like, come on.
That's how much they thought this stuff out back in the day.
Not much has changed.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a little better, but yeah, basically based on how energy has worked in Standard, they're still not doing that much planning. So let's talk about the tribes in Ixalan first before we get into specific cards a little bit. So we mentioned dinosaurs getting 6 new legends. They got 1 in each color and a new Naya legend. So what are your thoughts on Dinosaur Tribal now at this point?
I am loving it, especially with the new Naya legend. Oh, it's going to be so much fun.
I agree. There's much more to do there. And have they released the list of the new errata?
I don't think so, at least not as of us
I
recording.
haven't heard anything.
So we'll get another probably dozen off of that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So I think there's definitely a viable source. You have all the monocolor legends and now 2 Naya commanders for dinos.
Yep. That if you built, they would probably go in each other's decks, I would assume. If you built Dinosaur Tribal with both, you'd run them both.
Yeah.
Also, Enrage is the mechanic, right?
Yes.
Enrage I thought was fine last time around, but there's a bunch of really strong Enrage stuff this time too.
Oh yeah, that's an understatement. There's quite a few of them that are really good.
So it's like at this point it's worth building Dinosaur Tribal with a bunch of things to enable Enrage, whether it's Pyrohemia or Caltrops. I guess Caltrops wouldn't affect you, but there's Power Stone Minefield or Light Minefield where attacking creatures take a damage. There's a lot of ways to abuse it.
I know everyone hates this card, but you could put Steph and Nin in there, seeing how you're in the colors. You don't have excellent card draw, just in another card draw engine, but also enables your Enrage to just ping your guys.
Rite of Passage, so when your guys take doubles, essentially the Enrage trigger for the most part. I kind of went through and spec'd out. I just put cards in a list, like, okay, what dinosaurs, like, without really even counting, I just, okay, would I run this in a deck? Would I run this? Nah, this one isn't quite good enough. And I came up with like 25 or so that I would not feel bad including in a deck. I think that's good enough.
That's really good.
That's almost seems like it might be too much.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't run that many because their casting cost is so high.
Yep.
But that's if you can come up with 25 that you're like, yeah, for like a rough draft, if you come up with 25 creatures that work in your deck, that's enough to build a deck, I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I agree. Dinosaurs is looking pretty sharp at this point.
Now here's a question: did you, since we're talking about dinosaurs and how you spec'd it out, did you include the one that's not a dinosaur but technically plays with dinosaurs, or the two of them that do?
I didn't even do that because
you didn't spec any of those
because there might have even been two last set.
Yeah, I think there's two last set
and one in this
two
set.
or three last set, and I know there's two for sure.
The
in this
dinosaurs
set.
cost one or two less. I didn't even put those in the list.
Okay.
So once you factor those in, I also didn't put in changelings.
Yep.
So once you throw in things like changelings, because what's the green one that has pro black?
Chameleon Colossus.
Chameleon Colossus is really, really good.
Yeah. So not to get off topic here, but have you guys seen that Chameleon Colossus is crawling in price lately? What is going on?
He's played in the Modern Humans deck.
Yep.
Is that what's going on?
He's one of in the board, I think.
Also, the Dinosaurs deck, I've seen a lot of them in the Dinosaur list. Well, Pyrohemia got bought out for the Dinosaur decks.
Yep.
With Enrage. So, I mean, this stuff absolutely drives prices. There's also the red one that looks like a bull. Torian Mauler.
Yep.
Would be really good in the Dinosaur deck. But, I mean, you don't even have to go to changelings. There's just enough stuff at this point, I think.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of changelings wouldn't be a bad idea. Just to have,
yeah, for sure.
You know, because they have different abilities, so you'd have different outs than just having to play with Enrage and that kind of stuff.
All right. How about Merfolk? So Merfolk have always been Merfolk have always been fine, but like their biggest problem has generally been a good commander. Because we had a friend who played a white-blue Sig deck for a while.
Yep.
And it was fine for the first like five or six turns. But like once that first board wipe would hit, or once everyone else would build up, it just couldn't keep up. And I feel like adding green as a viable alternative color choice has been the best thing that's ever happened to Merfolk.
Yeah, especially with a multiplayer. Now, if I were to go like towards more of a 1v1, I think black would be your better choice for hand disruption. But for multiplayer, green is definitely 100% better.
I mean, adding ramp, adding overrun effects, green's card draw that's kind of based on going wide sometimes really helps. So yeah, I think blue-green Merfolk is in a really good place in Commander.
Well, not to mention now you got if you do go the green route, then you have your doubling seasons and other stuff. And these Merfolk, especially with the Ixalan sets, are dealing with +1/+1 counters, or creating tokens or something. So you got your outlets to create even more.
And also the previous commanders like Prime Speaker, who's a good card but isn't necessarily good in Merfolk, is good in a Merfolk deck with a new Merfolk commander.
Yes.
So it's made the other legends as part of your deck even better. And they got a new Lord, I believe, a 2-drop Lord for 2/2 that gives all your Merfolk +1/+1.
I really did not think that they were going to do that.
Now, is that in Modern Fish? Is that playable in Modern Merfolk?
We'll see what happens. I know a lot of people have been starting to splash green, so this could become a viable, what did that put you at? Your 4th Lord now, I think, in Modern? So it could be viable.
That'll be interesting to see. So we're in agreement that the first two tribes are looking really good.
Oh, yeah.
How about pirates? We got 26 new pirates in Rivals, but no new pirate legends.
I was kind of disappointed with the pirates. A few of them are good. I gotta say by far my favorite one is the Anthem. Whenever your pirates attack, they get +2/+0.
Yes.
By far my favorite one out of them
pirates
all.
are supposed to be played aggressively and be attacking and swinging in. I think pirates are viable now too. I just think it got the least splashy stuff of all the
Yeah,
tribes.
It was very surprising. I don't know, maybe in story, I haven't really read the story for this set, but maybe they're just kind of dying off in the story or something's going on. I'm not sure.
I also think that the black-red planeswalker whose name is it Angrath?
Angrath, yep.
I believe Marrow said that card bumped out another legend, another pirate legend.
Really?
Yeah. So that also kind of hurts.
That is interesting.
But there's a bunch of before when I looked at pirates last time after the main Ixalan set, you were running some pretty janky pirates just to fulfill the list. And there are enough now where like I think if you went through and said I want to put the best 25 pirates in a deck, you wouldn't feel bad about those last 5 or 6.
No.
They're all pretty playable.
I agree with that. I think out of all the tribes, I think this is still the weakest, though, just because you're locked into Grixis no matter what pirate legend you choose, and there are 1,000 better Grixis commanders out there, and that's an over-exaggeration because there aren't 1,000 Grixis commanders,
right.
But you get my point.
One of the problems pirates have, too, is like they could retype some dinosaurs into some creatures into dinosaurs, and it doesn't really hurt anything. Pirates are directly competing with rogues as a tribe, and any cards that they would retype off of rogue to pirate then makes rogues as a tribe weaker.
Yep.
Whereas a couple beasts out of the, whatever it is, 2,000 beasts that exist, no one cares. There's just not that many rogues, and that hits that tribe as well.
True. I see it as a good point going forward where they can just print stuff in with the name of whatever, something pirate.
Yeah, throw like one pirate per set in is pretty easy to do.
Yeah, I mean, it ain't going to hurt anything just going forward anyways.
All right, lastly, vampires.
Ooh, vampires are looking looking promising.
There were some really good common, uncommon level vampires, particularly that would fit in Edgar Markov decks. But we got a handful of new mono-white vampires. So if you want to run Mavrin Fane, mono-white vampire tribal, there's 18 mono-white vampires now. And there's a bunch of bad ones. But there's also 4 changelings. So if you count changelings, you're up to 22 mono-white vampires, if that's your thing.
You're there.
If you want to challenge yourself, somebody out there, make a Mavrin Fane vampire tribal deck and win a game. That would be fantastic to see. So there's a challenge. Gauntlet is thrown. Mavrin Fane mono-white vampires.
So I'm going to bring up these cards now that we're on to vampires, but each tribe got a tutor card.
Yes.
And I got to say, by far, I think the vampire one's the strongest.
Is that the essentially diabolic tutor that has the wishboard option on it?
No, it's a 3-drop 2/2. They're all vampiric tutors.
Oh, sorry. They're like the lore. We're talking about the ones that are like the Lorewind Harbinger.
Yeah,
card. Yep.
They're vampiric tutors. Put them on top of your deck. But this one says whenever a vampire enters the battlefield under your control, target creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn. And I thought about that with Edgar going, ugh.
So every one drop in Edgar that brings a friend in, double buffs your creatures that in play. Yeah, that's a pretty decent card.
Yeah, plus he's a tutor, so you're just like, oh, well, I'm going to tutor up my stealing vampire or my whatever else I need.
That's gross.
And we got a new vampire legend, which was our 3rd black-white vampire legend in existence, which is Elenda the Dusk Rose. Previously we had Vishkal Blood Arbiter and Vona Butcher of Megan. Elenda's kind of a whiff a little. I mean, I like the card a lot. As part of a deck, it's going to be really good, and I'm going to put it in at least one of my decks, in my Tesa deck, and maybe in Edgar as well. But as a commander, because of the way the trigger is written, if it goes to the command zone, you don't get the tokens.
Yep.
Yes.
That was a missed opportunity because in Standard, it's not any stronger if that's written as a when it's destroyed trigger, or even if it's an exit battlefield.
When it leaves the battlefield.
Yeah, that's not any stronger in any format, really. Because if you exile, you can't blink it. The counters disappear.
Yep.
So, I mean, you'll get the vampires for them, but it won't come back with counters on it. So it's not any stronger. I don't know. It's really strange that they wrote it that way because it made it worse for Commander and doesn't change anything else anywhere
Unless
else.
they were thinking something in Modern, which off the top of my head I can't think about, but maybe just a pure hate deck where you're running her and maybe a couple of other things, and all you're doing is you're just hating everything that hits the board to then just kill her and get so many creature tokens that you just swarm the board and they can't do anything about it.
And I guess if it's written as an exile the battlefield effect, Swords of Plowshare still makes the tokens.
Yep.
Maybe they don't want that. But that's why I think Destroy, as a Destroy trigger like you see on Decree of Pain, is perfectly fine. Would have been fine.
Yep.
But it's still a good card, and it's going to be a good card in other decks. the fact that it gets to counter when any creature dies, not just non-tokens, is really big.
It is. I'm curious to see how this is going to play in like a Gave deck or something like that. Because that could be real gross with Gave sitting out, having any type of mana doublers, and then you sack off your creature tokens to Gave. Oh, she gets bigger. Oh, I'll just make more, sack them off, and then eventually sack her off just to create even more.
Or my Tesa deck where I sack Reassembling Skeleton 4 or 5 times in a turn.
Reassembling. Who plays that card?
Right. It's a budget all-star, as we discussed last week.
Just as bad as Endless Brood of Cockroaches.
Exactly. So yeah, I like that card. I just wish it would have been a great commander. But I think we agree the vampire tribal decks all got better too.
Oh, I think they got way better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad enough they gave you a vampire, like, amazing all-star commander. Now they give you more to go in with it.
A bunch of good low-cost stuff. Another Lord, 2-drop Lord. And that 4-drop that's kind of a backwards Dark Confidant is disgusting. We'll get into that card probably later on, but that one is fantastic. So let's talk about the new commanders briefly. We'll just go alphabetically down the list of the new commanders and say a few things about them. And I will start with the first one. Azer the Lawbringer, who is a Sphinx with Sphinx's Revelation as a attack ability.
So honestly, when I read this card, I seriously think they made this for a commander.
It feels like a commander for sure. It feels like a commander card, absolutely. It's the same casting cost as Asperia, who I'm already running. Like literally exactly same mana symbols. Asperia's a 6/4. This is a 6/6. I don't entirely know if I'm going to use it as my commander, but it's going in the deck for sure. But the way the deck is built, I can swap it back and forth with Asperia just for the fun of it at any time, and it's not going to change anything. The only thing I think reason I might not use it is nobody cares about Asperia in my command zone. And this people will care about. Yeah,
this has the Madomi effect where people are going to see it and hate it off the board or make sure you can't cast it. Because, I mean, not allowing your opponents to cast instant or sorceries till during that player's next turn is huge. Saves you a whole round of the table.
Yep.
Then when you attack with it, you have a Sphinx's Rev on a stick. Which, you got to save mana, but
still.
Late game, if you drop this on turn 6 and you swing on turn 8, you have your mana to put into it.
I just think it's strictly probably the best Sphinx commander if you're going Azorius.
I think so too.
I feel like Sphinxes was in the running for Commander 17.
Well, we've got a few between this and I forgot what was the name of the one that was in Amonkhet where Sphinxes can't be countered and they cost 1 less.
Okay, I can't remember the name
mono
of it,
blue
but
one.
which one, yep.
Those both feel like commander cards that at some point maybe they were designed for some kind of tribal deck.
I feel like they were like, oh, let's do Sphinxes for Commander 17. And they're like, no, let's do cats instead.
Sure. Yeah, no, I would buy that. How about Azor in a Brago deck? It's a lot of mana to cast to blink to get that trigger, though.
He's 1 less than Palancron.
Yeah, and you've pulled Palancron.
Yep. No, Palancron's still in the deck.
Oh, is it still in the deck? Okay.
You need to pull it.
Yeah, and this is what it's going to get replaced with.
Okay. I could get behind that. I mean, a 6/6 body is huge. Especially seeing how it's hard to punch through sometimes with that deck.
That's kind of a kill condition. Like being able to swing for that damage changes the game state in that deck.
Yep. And I don't have a lot of life gain in that deck besides Sphinx's Revelation, so having another way to gain some life because that deck does. If I can't blink a mana vault, I'm losing 1 every turn.
Yeah.
This is pretty much. If you have this in Conjurer's Closet out, I think that's pretty much a lockout.
Yeah, that's going to be rough to deal with.
Yep.
Now I don't have a Conjurer's Closet in my deck, and
there's no reason to run it.
Not in my deck, but you have for sure have one in that Sphinx deck.
Yes, I do.
Or Sphinx deck in that Brago deck.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we touched on Elenda, the Dusk Rose, a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you want to skip that one and go to the next one?
We can skip that one.
Okay. I'll have to go on to the next one.
Sure.
We have Kumena? Tyrant of Orazca. Wow, I cannot pronounce anything. My brain's a little fried today. I'm sorry, everyone. So she's a 3-drop, 1 colorless, green-blue for a 2/4. Tap another untapped merfolk you control. She can't be blocked this turn. And then tap 3 untapped merfolk you control, draw a card, tap 5 of them. Put a +1/+1 counter on each merfolk you control.
So, I mean, easily the best merfolk tribal commander ever printed, I would say. Now, I'm not saying
pretty darn close.
There aren't
yeah.
like there are other legendary merfolks that are really, really good. But like if you want to have a merfolk tribal deck, this one interacts with other merfolks in really clever ways that better than anything else.
Well, I know there's I do believe it's a 2-mana enchantment out there that at each of your end phases you untap all merfolk you control. So
There's
you
also,
can just kind of go put counters on and then I'll just untap them all and pass the turn.
You have the enchantment, the merfolk enchantment that does that, and there's also I forget what it's called out of the original Zendikar block, the quest for one of the quest ones.
Okay.
That lets you in also after you have like 3 counters on it or something, untap creatures during your upkeep.
And it helps that in normal Ixalan we got that enchantment that whenever you cast a merfolk, make a 1/1 merfolk with hexproof.
Yep.
So there's your
Deep Root Waters.
Yeah.
There's your token machine to tap to make all your dudes bigger.
And quite a few of the merfolk out of Lorwyn also have that untap symbol or abilities that care about tapping or untapping. And there's a few of the blue ones in Theros that also have heroic abilities, so when they're untapped, they do a thing.
Yep.
So there's just a lot of cool things you can do with Kementa that I think it's definitely going to make for a really viable, strong merfolk tribal general. And I think you have to play him as merfolk. He doesn't give you any other options.
No.
But he definitely
with the abilities.
Yeah. I think the only thing we're missing is a Bant one now.
A Bant merfolk.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But
Ugh.
I mean, right. Well, you have half of it because you have Thasios Triton Hero, which has partner. So I guess you could partner it with something else and get there.
But it's not merfolk. You're
it
getting away from it.
Right. But, all right. What else we got, Max?
We're moving into the dinos. So we'll start with the mono red dino Itali Primal Storm, 4 colorless and 2 red, for a 6/6 Elder Dinosaur. Whenever he attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. Then you may cast any number of non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs.
So first of all, that's an attack trigger. It's not a combat damage trigger.
Right.
Yep.
So you just have to turn him sideways, and you get to exile. It's not really card draw, but it effectively is.
Mm-hmm.
You get the top card of everyone's library, and you can cast it for free.
Yep.
Now it's cast, not play.
So you don't get lands.
So you don't get lands. But that's insane value in mono red.
I would agree. I'm not quite sure if I'm digging it as a commander, but definitely in a deck, I think it's pretty strong.
My only thing about it as a commander is I don't know, like when I build a deck, I want a deck to do a thing. I want to have a theme or I want to have some synergistic interactions. I don't know what this one really does aside from kind of the same thing that one Krenko, mono red, is it mono red Krenko or black red Krenko that does a similar thing where it casts a top card?
I do not know. Mono red makes the goblins.
Oh,
you're thinking
Grenzo.
Grenzo?
Sorry, not
Yes.
Krenko.
I think that's black red Grenzo.
Okay. It's kind of similar to that, but that one only hits one person. This hits all the people.
And what's interesting is you have to cast those cards before the trigger resolves.
Right.
You don't get to wait till later. You do it now or you lose them.
But even if you're just getting like basic commander cards, you're just like, okay, well, I'll cast your Soul Ring and I'll cast your Nature's Lore and I'll cast that Hero's Downfall just for an attack trigger. That's
right.
I mean, that's insane. So, yeah, I like this. I mean, this is a really good card. My only question is I think it's just going to be in like mono red good stuff. I think that's how you'd build it.
I think so. I could see it maybe in like a red artifact-ish deck, like with Dreddy, where all you're doing is you're doubling your mana and type of stuff. So to play big beaters, it'd probably be good in there.
Or in the mono red Minotaur commander that was in Amonkhet, where you get the mana during your second main phase for damage you dealt in the first phase.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because that guy produces so much mana, and like I could see that you need some extra cards advantage going on for all the stuff you're casting out of your hand. So it's just going to get plugged into plenty of decks, whether they're red or Boros or as a commander.
Yep.
He definitely belongs in like a Jaleva deck where she's already doing somewhat similar things.
Yeah.
So why not have another one?
Yeah. I know every time I look at this art, I think of Jurassic Park 3. It looks just like the dino, the big bad dino of that one.
I think in terms of like raw power as a card, like as a card itself, it's the strongest of the legends.
Yes.
I mean, it's as far as the legends go, it's just like brute strength power. Maybe the Primal Calamity competes with it, which we'll get to later, but
I think there's another one that I would. I would.
I think that's what you're going to say.
Yep.
So we'll move on here again. We'll go to Galta Primal Hunger, and that is a 12/12 for 2 mana, conceivably.
Yeah, essentially.
The one that Dana has been cheating with and playing.
I have been cheating playing the Reki deck, and I've never paid more than 2 for it.
Oh, I can't imagine in that deck.
I've been super happy with it in that deck. I don't know. I guess you could put it in a Sisay deck where you would tutor it up with Captain Sisay because, pretty often that's going to be nice having that 12/12 trampling beater there in play. As a commander, I don't know what you maybe do with it.
Unless you're just playing for fun. You want to play like the mono green Stompy, like how we all started in Magic, where we're cracking packs and we go, oh, rare land, this card sucks. Throw it over your shoulder, next crack you pull. Oh, this 8/8 for 12 with trample.
Awesome.
I love this card.
Well, there's a lot of times you've seen those like green Stompy decks that's Nylea is the commander, and they're running all the green mythics that don't fit it. Like, hey, I got a World Spine Worm, and I've got a, those kind of things.
Hey, World Spine Worm is a great card.
It is if you get it into play. But the problem with Nylea in those decks is she gives all those giant green mythic beaters trample, and they already have trample.
Yep.
So in this case, you just have one that there's actually some synergy with those gross green cards because it makes your commander cheaper to cast.
That is true.
So I think if I was building just like the ultimate Timmy green Stompy deck, that would probably be my commander.
One of those decks where when it's turn 15, you pretty much have lost the game because you're like, every turn they're just going to be dropping another one, and we just can't deal with this anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I think Galta's a cool card. It's going to be in a few decks, and, yeah, it's got some casual play value as a commander there. What's next?
We got Nezahal, Primal Tide. 5 colorless, 2 blue. Nezahal Primal Tide can't be countered. You have no maximum hand size. Whenever opponent casts a non-creature spell, you draw a card. Discard 3 cards, exile Nezahal, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. This one is one that I would argue with is one of the other top tier ones.
It reminds me of a really good Pearl Lake Ancient.
Yes.
Yeah. That actually got that saw play in Standard at the time. So I'm like, this could conceivably see stand in a control shell.
I know a lot of people are hyped about it because of the unable to be countered, has its own evasion built in where you can't be removed.
Right.
You just discard cards. And you're just drawing cards off it as well.
Right, and it's easy to pitch the cards when you're drawing that many cards.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And the art looks great. I mean, it's a really cool looking card.
It's so for all us old folks here, this is what happens when Mystic Remora grows up.
Yes, I was going to bring that up.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Totally saw that on Facebook today. It was like the 2 cards next to each other. I'm like, oh, no.
This is what happens when you don't pay the 4 mana.
Yup.
I actually saw somebody, I can't remember what deck builder site it was, they had built this for their commander with like a sea creature deck that was running all Krakens and sea monsters and sea serpents and stuff. And it wasn't going to be
I
a good...
would love that to see
right,
that
it
deck.
wasn't going to be a good deck, but it looked like a super cool, fun thematic deck. All right. We have Tetsamok Primal Death. 4 mana, 2 black for a Elder Dinosaur with Death Touch. And has an ability black, reveal Tetsamok Primal Death from your hand, and put a prey counter on target creature. When Tetsamok enters battlefield, each creature your opponents control with a prey counter on it is destroyed. So basically, for 1 mana, when it's in your hand, you can mark a creature. Whenever you cast it, the creatures that you've marked all die.
And you can only use this ability during your turn.
Only during your turn. And it costs a black each time. So 6/6 with Death Touch. The problem here is that ability only works... Well, it only works from your hand, too. So, like, as a commander, that doesn't do you any good unless you want to be one of those really...
Hacking.
Right, hacking
people.
I'm going to bring it into my hand using... I can't remember the
Commander
land now.
Sphere.
Yeah,
no,
everyone's going to know what's
Command
happening.
Beacon.
Then.
And then use it. So, as a commander, I don't think it's got a lot of gas, but it's a useful card. There's a commander, a mono black commander out of Kamigawa, whose name I've forgotten. And when you target a creature opponents control, a spell or ability you control, destroys that creature. So that will be in every one of those decks because it basically turns it into a 1 mana kill spell that you can use during your turn repeatedly. Yep. So they'll never cast it; they'll just leave it in their hand.
It's a great use for black market mana, though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, oh, absolutely. I am gonna put it in my Glissa deck. I think.
I was going to ask you that because it really seems like it could fit your theme. I'm not sure how well it's going to play in your deck, but it would fit in.
I'm always kind of hurting for combat damage in that deck. I don't have a lot of like super strong creatures. Ogre Slumlord is sitting at 5 mana. It's 3 and 2. This is 1 more mana than that. But that's been, I mean, I don't have much token interaction. I just had that because it made the Death Touch tokens, and I like the card. It's like kind of a pet card of mine.
Yep.
So I think this is going to replace Ogre Slumlord in that deck.
Interesting.
As a commander, like we said, it doesn't have a lot of room to do much, but it's a decent card that will be in a few decks.
Right.
All right. What are the last two we got?
We'll move to the mono white one. Zetopah Primal Dawn. 6 generic mana, 2 white, legendary creature Elder Dinosaur for a 4/8. It has flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, and indestructible.
You should have just kept going. Should have been like, it's got enrage, it's got
this
every keyword. It's got changeling. It's got.
This is a dino version of Odric.
Well, this is going to
Odric
go
wants
in,
it.
Right. This will go into every Odric Lunarch Marshal deck for sure.
Now I want to get it altered and have Odric riding it, like the Power Rangers on their Megazord, like it's standing on the head.
That would be awesome.
So would this make you consider bringing your Odric deck back?
No, not at all. He's 8 mana in mono white. What would you do?
I mean, win the game.
Well,
basically, you would play this and win the game.
It's going in Jamoka though.
Oh, it is.
It has flying.
That's true.
And
that's a good call.
There are some lower costed flyers in that deck that don't do much.
Sure.
That I'll take a hit on the curve and put it in there.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to see how it plays.
And I mean, as a commander, there's worse things you could run than this. It's gonna hit somebody in the face. It does 15 different things.
It's 1 cheaper than Avacyn. That's my reasoning.
There you go. Yeah, I like it. I mean, it's a little bit bland in that it's just keyword soup, but
it's a total all-star in draft, man. You pull this card, it's just you get it up to that man, and you drop it, and your opponent's just gonna be like, "Yeah, I scoop."
And it'll go in Gishath decks because
yep.
everything in Gishath is an 8-drop, so why not?
Right.
So what's the last one we've got, Chris?
We got Zakama, Primal Calamity, 6 colorless, and Naya. Vigilance, Reach, Trample, 9/9. When he enters the battlefield, he or she, don't quite know, it's a dino.
It's got 3 heads. It could be both.
Could be. You untap all lands you control. Now, for 2 colorless and a red, it deals 3 damage to target creature. 2 colorless and a green, destroy target artifact or enchantment. And 2 colorless and a white, you gain 3 life.
So it's got a lightning bolt, a healing salve, and a disenchant on it.
Yep.
/ naturalize. So that's a lot. So it untaps your lands. First of all, you don't play it for free, but you play it and get that mana back immediately.
Yes.
So you play it, and then you immediately go, okay, I'm going to bolt that, and I'm going to destroy that, and I'm going to bolt that.
Yep.
Or whatever combination of those things you want to do.
Or I drop another 9-drop dinosaur.
Or drop another 9-drop dinosaur, right. So as a dinosaur, again, I think Gishath decks are going to jam it because it's such a useful card.
So good. And
once you get to 9 mana, particularly if it's in your Gishath deck, you can cast it, untap your 9 mana, and then cast your Gishath out of the command zone. So yeah, dropping those both in the same turn, that's not going to be fun to see.
Yep, it's one of the few dinosaurs that I'm going to hunt for to come pick up right away.
So are you going to build this as a commander, or do you just want one to have one?
I think I'm going to run Gishath because I picked up Gishath right away as soon as it came out too. So I'm probably going to try and do this. I'll probably pull away from Euro for a while because that's my other Naya deck.
Yep.
And try and run this instead as my big beater type of deal and see how it plays out. I would love to just play another tribal themed deck and just have some fun.
This will be a fun deck to build. Dinosaurs in general will be fun to build.
And the whole time I'm going to be humming the Jurassic Park theme song just to piss everybody off.
You have to bring that in like on a little like handheld recorder or something on your phone and just start playing it real quietly.
You know, I look at this, and if you took away all of its activated abilities, it's still an amazing card.
Yeah, the ability to untap your lands was just, when I read it when it was spoiled, I'm like, really? Really?
Yeah, no, it's not maybe backbreaking then like it is now. But yeah, you would still run it in Gishath if that's all it did was would essentially be free when you cast it. You'd still run it. Yeah, I like it a lot. My only thing I would say is, again, as a dinosaur commander, I don't really know how you would, if it like lends itself to being your commander in a dinosaur deck because it doesn't care about other dinosaurs.
No, aside from untapping the lands when it comes into play to allow you to drop more of them, other than that, it really doesn't.
You could make a pretty good control shell out of that. Having a commander that destroys artifacts, enchantments, and lightning bolt stuff is pretty decent. I mean, it's kind of Braille-like at that point.
Yep. So,
yeah, it's a cool card. They released a lot of good stuff. All these legends are interesting.
Yes.
Man, Mirari's Wake with that guy is going to be so much fun.
Yes.
Just float
Yeah,
all that mana,
sure.
jam them in, untap it, and then just tap it all and then be like, okay, so we're going to do this and this and this and this and this and this. You can kill him next turn. I don't care. We'll just do it again.
So we've touched on the legends that can be commanders or not in the case of the black one, but are there any other cards in the set that you guys would think worth spending a few minutes on? Because there's quite a few good cards in the set as well.
There's a lot of good cards.
The one
in
that I
set.
think is the most broken.
Sure.
The how about the one? What is it called? I'm looking at it right now. I do believe this is the one, the Azor's Gateway.
So Azor's Gateway. All right. So
yeah, we're talking commander. We're not talking any other format,
right.
but
so
for commander.
It's a 2-drop legendary artifact. And so Azor's Gateway, I think the first side alone is playable.
Yeah.
And the first side for 2 mana, you spend 1 mana, tap it to draw a card, then exile a card from your hand.
Especially in decks that are lacking card draw at 2 mana. So 3 mana overall to just draw a card.
3 mana for the first one to filter, to draw something and basically pitch a land or exile a land. In mono white, that's probably worth running just as that front side.
I agree.
However, that's not all it does. Like we've read that part. Now the flip condition on this is going to be tough to get.
It is
because the flip condition is after you exile the cards, you keep them exiled there because you need to keep track of them. And if cards with 5 or more different CMCs are exiled at Azor's Gateway, you gain 5 life, which seems utterly unnecessary. You gain 5 life, untap it, and transform it. And the transform side, Sanctum of the Sun, is also a legendary land that you may tap to add mana of any one card in your mana pool where X is your life total. Okay, so I guess that's why you probably gain the 5 life. So your life total was even dumber.
Right?
So in Commander, you tap it for like 30 mana or 20 mana or 10 mana. 10 mana.
Even just 10 mana.
10 mana is stupid.
Oh, God. But the flip condition is probably the hardest flip condition we've seen out of any of these flip cards in Ixalan.
Maybe if you're running... what's the super busted card whose name escapes me that was in
Paradox Engine?
Paradox Engine, where you can untap it and do multiple things
or
a turn.
Clock of Omens, or anything that
Sure.
untaps your
Icy
artifacts.
Crown Scepter with Dramatic Reversal etched onto it.
There's a couple ways you could cheat it, but if you're not cheating, it's going to take you 5
At
turns
least
to
5
get there.
turns, Yep.
So there's plenty of time for your opponents to respond.
Yeah.
You're losing those cards. Well, you lose those cards no matter what when it flips.
They're going to be exiled, so they're gone. So unless you're playing with the Griffin from Mist Hollow Griffin, I think it is from
Or Rift Sweeper.
yeah, something like. In which case, then you're not going to meet the clauses anyway because your
Right.
creatures aren't exiled anymore. So are you guys going to try this card at all in any of your decks?
I'm going to try and find one and pick it up. I don't know if I'm actually going to try it, but just the ability to do something stupid like that is worth it.
I, too, like Chris, I'm going to try to get at least a couple for my collection. I don't know if I'll find a spot for it in a deck just because of how fragile it really is based on my building style of my decks.
One thing about it, people can see what you've exiled with it, so they know what cards you've exiled. So it's pretty obvious if you're just using it for the
flip.
The draw clause, or whether you're actively trying to flip it. So like if you're going to play this in your mono white deck and you've just exiled 3 lands to draw 3 cards, then someone's probably much less likely to worry about it in exile than it is if you've gone, Mistress Bauble into exiled a Brainstorm and then exiled an Anticipate or something, then they're like, But if you're just like pitching lands, people will probably leave it alone if you're just using it for the filter effect.
See, if you get it early on in the game, you got to play it smart, in my opinion, where you go, okay, tap it, do this, and I'm going to exile this 8-drop in my hand. No one's going to think anything
Right,
of it.
sure.
Next turn, I'm going to exile this 6-drop in my hand. And then a land, and they're just going to kind of forget about it. And you'll be like, cheat this one in there. Hopefully no one notices.
See, what you just described I can totally see happening at our shop. Someone's going to be like, oh, that Azor's Gateway has 2 lands and a 1-drop underneath it. I'm going to unravel the Aether on that instead of that Doubling Season or Mirari's Wake on the other player. And I can already hear Chris going, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Listen to me.
Well, I think I'm going to try it in my mono white Zero Super Friends deck just because the card filtering will be useful.
I believe it is a phenomenal card, even if you don't flip it, for the decks that need that card draw.
Need the card draw.
Your Boros, your whites, that kind of stuff.
Rakdos, stuff like that.
And I was considering it maybe in my Recce deck because it draws me a card at 2 mana, so it replaces itself immediately. Then I get that filtering back on top of it. So I'm like, yeah, maybe we'll see. So speaking of card draw on artifacts, we might as well talk about the Immortal Sun.
Yes.
And it's also a legendary. 6 mana legendary artifact. Players can activate Planeswalker loyalty abilities. At the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card. Spells you cast cost 1 less. Creatures you control get +1/+1, and it makes your hair extra shiny. That's not on there, but that's the only thing that isn't on there is the makes your hair extra shiny part.
Strictly a better Staff of Nin.
In the decks that running Staff of Nin, I mean, technically Staff of Nin does 1 point of damage. This doesn't do that, so I mean, I wouldn't say
if you're
strictly better, but if you're running Staff of Nin just for the draw,
this is
which
way
is
better.
the only reason anyone runs Staff of Nin, this is better. Unfortunately, the one deck I have that runs Staff of Nin is my Mono White Super Friends deck, so I can't run this since I can't activate Planeswalker abilities.
I think you should put that in the deck.
Just
because.
Live on the edge.
You don't have to play the card, you just have to draw it.
6 mana for all of those things. For an Anthem, for an extra card draw,
Spell
for shutting
Reducer.
down, for Spell Reducer and shutting down Planeswalkers if you're not running a bunch of Planeswalkers in the deck.
So I'm going to troll a couple people by saying this for all, see how many of our friends listen to this, but this is going in my 15-card sideboard.
Is that right? So you can go get it if you need to. Well, I think this is simultaneously overrated and also really, really good. I think you're gonna see a lot of people that are like jamming it into decks that probably don't need to have it in their deck.
I don't like it at the Mythic slot in the set. I wish it was more of a rare slot.
Yeah.
I believe that's more of its value.
Lore-wise, though, it makes sense as a Mythic, I guess.
Okay, yep, I can get behind that way.
So are you guys gonna put it in any decks?
I am.
Where's it going?
It's going in Jamocha.
That I could see. That I could see.
You have no fear about jacking up the CMC.
No,
the average CMC in that deck.
He has
Now,
like 12
putting in a
ramp
9
spells
drop.
in that
I'm
thing.
putting in a 9-drop dinosaur and putting in a 6-drop
It's
artifact.
an 8-drop dinosaur, thank you very much.
It's going to be a 7-drop when he plays this.
That's true. All right,
So-
good point.
Because
Good point.
I'm actually going to replace Tamio's Journal with this card.
Which is a 5-drop.
Oh, no, did he get to you?
No. So
Okay.
here's Tamio's Journal takes a full turn to turn on, like
Yep.
he describes.
Right.
In that deck, it does work for me. I love it. But this does something right away when I drop it. It makes my next spell cheaper.
Yep.
Makes all my already 5-something flyers bigger.
Sure.
So for 1 more mana to get way more value right away is worth trying it for.
You have
2 to
I
3
suppose
weeks.
even on the next turn, you're actually getting the card compared to getting the clue token that you have to sack
Right.
to get
Yep.
a card.
And you spend mana to sack.
and you have no Planeswalkers in that deck, so you don't
0.
care about that. And so then therefore it defensively will shut down other Planeswalkers.
And I'm really hoping the only foil aspects on the card are the light coming through the
I could
The
see it being a
emblem.
really good looking foil for sure. I don't know where I'm going to run it. I would like to try it in a deck, but I don't know where I would put it.
draws you a card in Recce.
It does, and I've thought about that. And it buffs my creatures. I don't
And
know
they
if I
cost
need
less,
it.
so you can draw more cards.
All right. What else do you guys want to talk about at the set?
I kind of want to just give a mention out to the new Hotley.
Yes.
Broken.
4 mana, you get your 2 colorless, green, white, 3 loyalty on her. But that +1 ability that when put a loyalty counter on her for each creature you control.
That's so nice.
It is.
In a token deck, oh, that's just nasty.
But then you got to think, okay, you do that. You have 5 tokens out or whatever, 5 creatures. She
Yep.
becomes 8. You emblem her. You get an emblem with whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card.
Enters the battlefield, not is cast. Enters the
Yep.
battlefield. I mean, in most token decks, you're not going to cast this until you have ways to protect her, which are a bunch of tokens that can serve as blockers, which then will jack her loyalty. I mean, she's going to come into play most of the time, probably with like 8 to 10 loyalty.
Easily, if it's played right.
Because she's going to be in token decks, and if you're a smart player, she's going to already come into play to be ulted next turn.
Yep.
And you're going to have protection in the way to use her. And then even if you don't want to get the ult, that -1 isn't bad either. Target creature gets +X on the turn. Rex is also number of creatures you control.
Yeah, and then I overwhelming stampede my whole board, and I already have a 10/10, so now they're all get plus
Right.
20 or whatever.
Yeah, this is, I mean, it pretty much demands a token deck or some kind of a swarm deck, maybe Elf Ball.
I was gonna say I could see it in Elf Ball.
Yeah.
Yep.
and
But it's it's
wanted
going
to
to be a
her.
player.
I just wanted to mention her because it just seems like she could go second turn alt.
Yes.
And there's not a whole lot of planeswalkers that can do that.
One thing I would say, I think they intentionally set her loyalty and that alt far enough apart that doubling season didn't work with her because she's green.
Right.
So you're going to have to, no matter what, hit that +1. But I guess technically if you have a Gideon's Oath of Gideon, where your planeswalker comes and plays an extra counter and a doubling season now, and she'll come into play at 8 without doing anything. But who cares? At that point, that's a lot of hoops.
Yeah.
I have 2 that kind of work together.
All right.
So my first one is Tender Shoot Dryad. It's 4 generic and a green for a creature Dryad. It has Ascend, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would like to talk about that.
At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 green Saproline creature token.
Each upkeep.
And it's a 2/2 body to begin with. And then Saprolines you control get +2/+2 as long as you have the City's Blessing. So I did a little digging. There are 69 cards that mention Saprolines.
Yeah.
So there might be enough to build a Saproline deck.
I've seen a couple.
Because, you got Rith.
Yep.
He makes them. So you're in 3 colors, and most of these all look in...
I think Gaves are Saprolings as well.
Yep.
There's at least 1 or 2 green legends that also do things with Saprolings,
yep.
I believe.
But you got to either choose if you want to go Naya or Jund, because there's a few black creatures and a few white creatures that do Saprolines.
Well, that's why I've seen Atraxa used, because she uses the proliferate ability with the counters, and then you can run all the Saproling guys. So I've actually seen Atraxa used for that purpose.
The card that kind of goes with her is Path of Discovery. It's an enchantment for 3 and a green. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it explores. An explorer is reveal the top card of your library, put that card in your hand if it's a land, otherwise put a +1/+1 counter on that creature, and then put it back in on top or in your graveyard.
So let's on a quick just go back to the Saproling guy, and I just forgot his name.
Tender Shoot Dryad.
Tender Shoot Dryad is maybe even better than Avenger of Zendikar. Now, Avenger, there's obviously those situations where if you have haste, you play Avenger and make 14 tokens and then drop your land and give them all +1/+1.
Yep.
And then swing and kill somebody.
That's a lot of work.
But most of the time with Avenger, you play Avenger and then someone is laughing as you're counting out tokens because they're just going to wipe the board next turn. And I've seen Avengers die way more often than I've seen them actually accomplish anything.
Yes.
Whereas this card seems much more like Paint, where you have to go, do I want to remove it? Because it's going to take 3 or 4 turns to get going.
Yep.
And get everything on the board. But it's still going to be making, tokens that go it feels like it's a safer Avenger maybe, and because it does something immediately too. It's to do things on every upkeep.
It's a lord pretty much.
And it looks like Groot.
Yes.
Right. So I want it altered as Groot.
But on the other one you mentioned, Path of Discovery, man, I looked at it a bunch of times and I'm like, is that great or just really, really good? But it's one of the two.
It's going to be good.
It's also ETB. So whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it explores. But it's not, again, that's not a cast trigger.
Nope.
So in Gave decks where you can spend a mana to make a token, then you just immediately...
Pretty much you're going to be able to filter through your deck.
Yeah, and there's no activated cost for doing this. So you cast it and then go back about doing the thing you were doing on your token deck, whether it's making tokens with Gave or whether it's using Rith to make tokens or using...
The Merfolk enchantment that makes...
Deep Root Waters.
Root Waters.
Or Risa Redeem. The thing you were already going to be doing anyway in your token deck is just going to give you value on top of it by it sitting there being cast. I think Path of Discovery is just a fantastic card.
Do we want to mention the nice little additions that the old Gitrog Frog is going to get?
Gitrog got a couple of decent cards. Landfall in general got a couple of decent cards.
Yes.
Wayward Swordtooth is the first one that jumps to mind for me.
Oh, yeah.
So we might as well touch on Ascend here, because it's the first card we've mentioned that has Ascend. If you control 10 or more permanents, you get the City's Blessing for the rest of the game. So Ascend means you get the City's Blessing once you have 10 or more permanents. So that's not non-land permanents just period.
Yep.
In Commander, that's going to be relatively easy to hit. And
yep,
then once you hit
I'm guessing around turn 5-ish, you should
probably.
Be able to.
And then once you have it, it stays. You can't lose City's Blessing. So it doesn't matter if someone board wipes. What happens from that point on, It's just there waiting for you to take advantage of it.
Now I'm curious. I know I keep looking through the spoilers, but I didn't see tokens for this set. I wonder if they're going to give us a token like the Monarch type of
There's
token.
a promo City's Blessing token.
Foil.
It's a foil. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's going to be during the game nights or whatever that they give those out at.
It's probably the F&M token.
Oh, that could be.
But Wayward Swordtooth has Ascend. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. So that's 3 mana for a 5/5 that lets you play an additional land. However, it can't attack or block until you have the City's Blessing. But man, by the time you play it, you've already got 3 lands in play at least. It lets you play a 4th one in theory. It's a 5th one. It itself counts as a 5th permanent.
You're halfway there on
so
turn
you're
3.
halfway there just by virtue of being able to cast it, probably.
Yep.
In addition to whatever else you've got in the field. So it's going to have Ascend by the time it hits, most of the time or within the next turn or so. Giving you then a 5/5 body they can swing that's what you played extra lands. I'm going to put it in my Mina and Den deck, I think. I haven't decided officially if I want to because Mina and Den let me play extra lands, and I have a couple other things in there as well. The problem in that deck is more getting cards in hand to play than it is being able to play extra lands.
Okay.
But I still think that's really useful, and it's awesome in a dinosaur deck.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Like built-in ramp on top of being a strong dinosaur, and it's only 3 mana, and that deck can use in those dinosaur deck tribal decks.
Yes, it could.
Stand to have a few 3 drops.
I'd like to talk about World Shaper. So 3 colorless and a green, Merfolk Shaman 3/3. Whenever it attacks, you mill the top 3 cards. You may. So this is may. You don't have to. You mill the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. Now, when it dies, you put all your land cards from your graveyard on the battlefield.
So it's Splendid Reclamation on a dude.
Yep.
When it dies.
Yep.
Yeah, Gitrog's going to like that. So will Titania.
Marin.
So we'll, Marin. Sultai Sidisi, who mills stuff.
Yep. Anything to pitch cards into your graveyard, and then, worst comes to worst, it dies, and you get some of the cards back.
And if you're playing a 5-color deck or a 4-color deck that's running 8 or 10 fetches as well, I mean, that's in that deck, it's really good too. How's it going to be in Standard? Is that playable? Is that a Standard? There's no fetches in Standard, so there's not a lot of lands in your graveyard.
I don't think it's really too playable in Standard.
All the deserts are cycling lands that people may or may not.
Yeah, the cyclers, I guess.
That could be something to think about, but I don't think it will be played that much.
Yeah, that's just a really, really, really good card.
Should we move on to the big bad red card that we all need to talk about?
No.
Okay, we're going to skip Blood Sun?
No, let's talk about it, because I need to find me a playset of these as fast as possible.
So do you want it for like Legacy or something?
For Modern.
Do you think so?
Turn 3, fetch lands don't work anymore.
That's true. If you're playing a deck that doesn't care about fetch lands, why not? There's a whole list of really, we'll put it on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
There's a list somebody put together of all the janky interactions and the lands it does goofy stuff with. But there's a bunch of weird things it changes. Like the Ravnica bounce lands suddenly don't bounce stuff anymore.
And they come in untapped.
And they come into play untapped. So you just play your Ravnica bounce land, and it's you have a land that taps for 2, which is pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one, if you can cheat this in Modern, it's going to be gross.
Well, it really screwed up the prices bounced for Scorched Ruins and Lotus Veil because people are theorizing that they're going to run this in older formats because you can just drop that Lotus Veil, no longer have to sacrifice 2 lands.
Yep.
It just comes into play as a land that taps for 3 mana. Now, I don't know enough about the format to know if that's just like pie in the sky stuff because Solemnity was supposed to be a crazy thing too, and that didn't pan out.
Well, see, I could see this in your Eldrazi lists in Legacy that are running City of Traders. I think a City of Traders is the one that whenever you play another land, you have to sack it. Well, if I play my Blood Sun, I play my Ancient Tomb next turn. Oh, guess what? Now I just play, I don't have to worry about City of Traders going away.
I feel like this is a more real spec than the pirate beatdown deck that was going around.
Yes. I'm curious about it in Commander because there's situations where it comes down and I'm like, oh man, it just turned off my fetch land. But it also turned that thing off and that thing off and that thing off. It's
going to turn off the Mazes of Ith. It's going to turn off everything that does something that's not mana related.
Like it's going to, because you get that with Blood Moon right now where someone plays Blood Moon and you're like, I lose 2 lands, but that dude lost 5 lands and you need those 5 more and I needed my 2, so I'm not going to do anything about it. This is going to create those states too where you play it and it's going to be weird who it affects and what ways it affects them. and so people will maybe want to remove it, but maybe not if it hits somebody else harder.
I think it's just an upside almost to play it like. There's a few decks I've been contemplating in Commander. I'm playing it. Like, I'll probably play it in Dinos to turn off, like, the Maze of Ith and crap like that so I can swing through hard. But the ability to come into play at 3 mana for a red enchantment and net you a card.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and it replaces itself, which is weird.
Yep.
That was the part that really surprised me, that it draws you a card when it comes into play.
Yeah. Way to go, Wizards. You screwed up Blood Moon. Could have done that for us.
Right. Blood Moon's so terrible because it doesn't replace itself. So yeah, that one's gonna be cool. I don't know. I don't know how it's gonna work, how it's gonna play out. So I'm interested to see how it.
I'm gonna forecast it. I think it's gonna rise up to Blood Moon prices and probably stay there forever.
Okay, so you're hyped on it.
I am really hyped on it. We've been discussing it a lot, all our modern players and all that.
Okay, all right.
So
interesting. All right. So what other cool cards jump out at you guys? I've got one land here I'm gonna mention, which is I think the only straight up land.
The only
that comes
one.
into play. Arch of Orazca is a land that has Ascend. Tap it for a colorless, or if you have 5 mana, tap to draw a card. Use this ability only if you can have the city's blessing. So only if you have the blessing, you can spend 5 to draw a card. So it's not good at all. But again, in a mono white deck where you can afford to have a couple utility lands, I think it's all right in that deck. There's also a few mono red decks I've seen that are based on big mana burn stuff that are like running like Braid of Fire and what have you. If you're running Braid of Fire in a mono red deck, this should be in your deck on those turns when you don't have something to do with Braid of Fire mana. You might as well dump it into this and draw a card. So it's not great, but I think it's useful in some decks. Mono white and maybe mono red Braid of Fire decks. I don't know where else I would run it, because 5 mana is a lot to draw a card, even on a land.
yeah, well, yeah, because it's 5 mana and tap. It's technically it's 6.
It's 6, right?
Yep.
Maybe if you're running an artifact deck where it's mostly going to be a waste most of the time, and you're like, why not have it instead of a waste, just so I can maybe use it once every 5 games?
Yeah.
There's not much downside in a brown deck like that. But what else?
So I'm surprised you didn't mention this one. I don't think we did, but Champion of Dusk.
Champion of Dusk is
You of all people, I'm surprised didn't mention it.
Because you like drawing cards and you like using your life as a resource.
I do. And particularly in Edgar, where it comes into play and makes you a token and then draws you a bunch of cards. Was it 5 mana?
Yes.
5 mana.
5 mana for a 4/4. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of vampires you control. Pardon, not even creatures, vampires.
And I'm already running Minions Murmurs in that deck, which is 4 mana to draw a card for each creature you control. That's each creature, but in that Edgar deck, they're all vampires, so I don't care.
Yeah, well, why not jam this guy?
Yeah.
Plus, he's a body. He's a body,
for
too.
sure going in my Edgar deck. Absolutely.
So, along with Edgar, are you also putting in, let me find it here, Radiant Destiny?
Is that the Anthem?
Yeah, it's a 2 and a white with Ascend. It's an enchantment. Enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control get +1/+1 of that type, as long as you have the blessing. They also have Vigilance.
That's 3 mana, right?
Yes.
People already run stuff like Glorious Anthem, which isn't that great.
Right.
This is better than that, I would say. I'm not going to run it because I'm not running many Anthems in that deck. I've got Shared Animosity and...
I actually was thinking was more for the Vigilance than the...
Vigilance is nice.
Than the buff, just because you have so many blockers if you don't have to tap them to attack.
I think if I was going to run anything, I would rather run something that gave a little bit of evasion, like Cover of Darkness, or something that gave maybe a Menace to help stuff get through. I don't think that deck really wants Anthems necessarily, but if you're running one of those decks that does want Anthems, that's a pretty decent one.
True. I have another one in white. So, what is it? Retribution of the Meek, I do believe, is the board wipe that I'm thinking of. So, Slaughter the Strong, which is even cheaper in the mana cost to play. Yeah. And it's not a destroy effect, it's sacrifice.
It is. So, Doran players rejoice.
Yes, that's immediately what I thought when I read that. I'm like, oh,
one more fun toy. Yeah, I think you probably only want it in your Doran deck for the most part.
It's going to go in a Lesha, and I'm just going to laugh at everybody.
Sure, and your Lesha's a deck where everything's pretty small, too.
Yep.
Some kind of white weenie deck, it's good.
It'll lower my curve. I'm actually contemplating on pulling Wrath of God for it, because it's one colorless less, but I still have to do the double white on it.
Right. But I think that's a really solid card as well.
Yeah.
So we might as well mention this one. Like I kind of didn't put it on my list because it's so Obviously, Storm the Vaults is really good.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think we talked about any of those.
So we might as well let's do the flip cards real quick then.
Sure.
Because there's a few of them. It's not quite as the embarrassment of riches as it was last time, but Storm the Vaults flipping over easily. It flips really easily. Because whenever one or more creatures you control do combat damage to a player, you create a treasure artifact token. And at the beginning of your end step, if you control 5 or more artifacts, transform it. So you have the option of swinging in with whatever it is, pirates or whatever your creatures are, and making some treasure tokens. But in something like a Brea deck, you're just going to play this and then turn it over at the end of your turn. I mean, that's just it. There's not much to say other than it's just disgusting in decks that can run it and care about artifacts.
Yeah, I totally agree.
You know, there's a reason the other one's banned, right?
Right, exactly. And I don't think this is like busted. I mean, I think you have to play it, you have to flip it. You've got a chance to respond and disenchant the enchantment when it's sitting there. And there's things you can do. But it's going to be fantastic in some decks.
Yep.
I think more than just fantastic. It's going to catch probably a lot of people off guard at first.
How about the green-black one? What did you guys think of that one? So it kind of has a Gift of Immortality effect on the front side. And then when the creature dies...
You flip it. You bring it back and you flip it.
Yep.
I'm not impressed by it.
I think it's strong, but the point I made, I can't remember, I was talking to somebody, one of our listeners on, I think, our Facebook page, and I said the decks that really want it kind of already do that kind of thing. Like Carador's already doing that. Marin's already doing that. Is it Kazrik? The sacrifice one that was in the Marin Precon is already kind of doing that. So it's nice for them to have one more way to do that, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be, those decks were already going to, so it's one more way, it's not broken because they're already going to do that.
Well, I'm thinking of a Marin deck in general. I think it allows you an additional way to return cards from the graveyard.
So you can do 2 in a turn.
Yep. And you can stack up your counters, your, I can't remember the name, experience counters faster.
Right. Yeah, but like, I was looking at it from my Glissa deck, and I'm like, okay, it'll be nice in there. However, to really use it well, you need some sack, because you want to be able to do it on demand. You don't want to like just wait till a board wipe happens.
Right.
And do I want to run a bunch of more sack outlets just to be able to? I'm like, no, I don't. I'm not going to add it to that deck, and then add other things. And if your deck already has a bunch of sack outlets and can run it, you were probably already doing those things.
Yeah.
So
I'm thinking of Sakura Tribe Elder with this thing on it and just going, no,
right.
Stop.
But like already, Carador decks or my Tesa deck, I'm running Gift of Immortality in that deck, and I'm already doing that kind of thing.
Yep.
So it's just one more way to do it.
I think the ability to flip and then giving you pretty much a reanimate on a stick.
Yep.
That's the one thing I think the flip with the reanimate on a stick makes it more playable than just anything else.
I think Patrick Spola, friend of the show, is going to put it in his Marin
Relentless
Rats deck, so he mentioned that. So
he needs more Relentless Rats.
Right, right. So any more standouts worth talking about? The black-white flip land was pretty disappointing, I thought.
I think for second place, the blue-green one gets the award for second place out of all the flips.
It's fantastically busted in Azuri Claw of Progress for sure.
Yep.
I think the land portion of it's probably better by far, giving it flying.
Yeah.
Like we really need to give it, those monsters flying. No.
But Varel and the whole clay decks care about counters, and Mimiplasm kind of can care about counters. Like, there's enough stuff. There's a lot of counters matter in those decks.
This could go in like an Edric deck just as a way to push those unblockable dudes through, and then I'm going to give him flying on top of it.
Yeah, give Edric himself on turn 4 flying.
Yep.
I don't think I would put it in mine, but that's not a bad play. All right, I think those are the main flip cards. Is there anything else you want to hit on? I've got one more, Twilight Prophet, who I kind of hinted about earlier, which was the
is that the
Dark Confidant.
Yep.
2 mana, 2 black, so 4 total. For Vampire Cleric, it has flying, and it has Ascend. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have the City's Blessing, reveal the top card of your library and put it into your hand. Each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is that card's converted mana cost.
Each opponent. That was built for Commander.
Yes.
I wouldn't necessarily say it was built. It was added on to make it better Commander.
Because even that doesn't make it worse in Standard. It doesn't change how it plays in Standard. And
right. And the one issue with this, though, it doesn't have anything to do with like a tribe, so it's going to go in every deck.
You could put this in any black Commander deck, and it wouldn't be a bad choice.
No.
And if you get this in your pre-release, or in your draft and get it on the field, and you have the Ascend, you're just gonna. That's it. You're just gonna draw a card and kill the person in 2 turns. So it's a great card. It's a little bit generically great, but it's still a great card.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try and troll you again, Dana. I don't remember if you wrote an article about this one, but Wizards, I guess, caved and they reprinted Naturalize.
I did. No, but well, it came out today, so I wrote the EDH Rec review of Green.
Okay.
So I did Green, and I went through all the Green cards and commented on them. I didn't do any of the reprints, stuff like, except for Naturalize. And I just wrote Naturalize. Don't ever run this. So yes, I did. They trolled me, and I did comment on it in my review.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
For 15 years, it had always been in Standard, and then for like 6 months, it wasn't. And now it came back.
It's
surprise.
Back, along with Cancel.
And I seriously wonder if they reprinted this because of all the enchantments that they've been printing and the artifacts that flip.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
They needed something to deal with it. I would guess. They should have reprinted Unravel the Aether instead, but it is
No,
what
then you'd get it back.
Eventually, I guess in Standard, Unravel the Aether is not as strong as it is in Commander.
Right.
And there's no indestructible to deal with like there was in Theros. So
Yep.
yeah, it makes sense. Would have been nice to get the what is the 1-mana-1 where the person gains 3 life. The green removal.
I used to play a lot of that too. Nature's Claim.
Nature's Claim. Yep, that's what it is. And Nature's Claim would have been nice in Standard. So those are the big standouts for me. Is there anything else I missed that you guys want to talk about? I'm sure we missed some cards because there's a bunch of good cards here and we can't talk about all of them.
Yeah, I have one more that I'm going to talk about, and this is strictly for, since I play all the formats, is for Standard. The Rekindling Phoenix. 2 colorless, 2 red for a 4/3 flyer. Now, when it dies, you create a 0/1 red elemental creature token. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice that token, bring Rekindling Phoenix back to the battlefield, and it gains haste for the turn.
That's really tough to get rid of for a flyer.
Yes.
That's a draft bomb.
It's pretty much requiring 2 removal spells because you have to kill that token too. Because if I'm playing Ramnap Red or something like that, and they kill it, and they attack me the next turn, I'm not blocking with that token.
No, right,
I'm just like, sure, come at me, bro. I'm coming at you next.
We really need a legendary Phoenix because there's a bunch of these Phoenixes that are kind of cool, but you don't run them in a deck. But if there was a legendary Phoenix that did something with Phoenixes, that would be an awesome deck to build.
Wizards
would be very good though.
No, I wouldn't. But
Wizards is going to screw it up and make it Rakdos.
Yeah, but that wouldn't hurt you really because you don't run the red Phoenixes, so they make it Rakdos. Who cares?
But I see him making it 2 colors and like, there's no Phoenixes in this other color.
Yes, that's probably true.
It's the life and death.
Sure.
Yeah, there we go. All right, Max, any final cards from you, or is that it?
That is all I have.
All right. Well, I mean, there's cards, and there'll be things that like in 6 months, like how did we miss that? That card's so good. And there's a bunch of useful pirates, and there's there's a Merfolk that makes all your Merfolk draw cards. That's going to be great in every Merfolk deck. And there's a couple really interesting pirates like Direfleet Daredevil that kind of is a bit of a mini Snapcaster.
Yeah, we didn't talk a lot about blue.
Yeah, so there's a lot of like stuff like that. We tried to focus on the cards that were jumping out at us, and we'd like to hear back from you guys. What cards are you most psyched about in Rivals of Ixalan? Because this is a really strong Commander set again.
Yes.
It's a really small set too.
It's a small set, but it's pretty tight. I mean, there's even at uncommon and common, there's useful cards.
But I did notice too, going through, I don't know if you guys noticed, there's a lot of cards from the original Ixalan that got reprinted.
There's a lot of reprints from back in September. I was kind of surprised at that as well.
I hope this isn't the habit they get into if they decide to split a block into 2 sets.
Well, I know at least in the case of one of them, there was the vampire where you can, when you cast it, you can
search for
the other vampires. So I think they wanted, particularly in draft, to make sure to get that.
I think a lot of them, I looked at a lot of them, and they seemed like they were more draft cards where they were like, well, if we create a new card, then this is going to screw up something down the line, and we'll just reprint it, and so then it creates a draft a better format for this.
And I think moving forward too, we're going to have a lot of one set plain things, so there won't be that because there's just one Dominaria set. There might be just one of wherever we go after that, so there won't be an opportunity to do those like reprint a month later. So I think that is it for us on Ixalan. We'll be back next week. Thanks a lot for listening. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.